Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, a stupid neighbor hated my pickup truck and claimed that I am ruining the environment and polluting the neighborhood. She then stole and vandalized my vehicle. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the story. And the first one starts like this. I would like to start this by just letting you all know my viewpoint on environmental issues. I 100% am concerned with the environment and the planet, and I do my bit where I can to help out, simply being as environmentally friendly as I can throughout my daily life. One thing which I know and knew then was not a good environmental machine was my truck. I got said truck when I was 18, I was 25 when this all went down, as a gift from my father. It had been his for many years. At the time this whole fiasco went down, I was very broke and could not afford to change it for something that would be better for the environment. But I had the full intention to do so when I had the money. It was not a preference for the car that had me keeping it and driving it. Anyway, this all started when I got a new neighbor. I was planning to wait a few weeks before I introduced myself to her, as I wanted to allow her time to unpack and settle in. She moved in with her husband and teenage son. However, after only one day of them being there, I heard abrasive knocks on my door and opened it to see the angry and unfamiliar face. "Hello?" I asked, unsure as to who this was. "I assume that truck is just for display, yes?" She asked, looking at me as if we had an ongoing feud for years. "No, that's the truck I drive. I know it doesn't look the best, but hey, it gets the job done." I attempted to add a little bit of lightheartedness to the situation. "You drive it?" she all but screamed. "Yes, I do," I said, flinching from the pitch of her screech. "By the way, why does it matter to you? And who are you?" "I just moved in next door, and it matters because that hunk of metal is a major pollution source." She was exasperated and had gone from simply standing in my doorway to leaning forward so she was almost inside. This was certainly a very strange first encounter with my new neighbor. Yeah, I know. I try to avoid driving it when I can. I take public transport whenever possible. I did not want to have an argument with her if she was going to be living next door, so I was trying to just agree with her. After all, I did. "So you still drive it sometimes, yes?" she asked, but I knew it was rhetorical. "Well, yes, sometimes I must." "Why?" "Some places I go to for work don't have any bus stops or stations nearby." I shrugged. "Well, then walk." They let off a laugh like I hadn't thought of that or something, and I said, "Look, I cannot walk 50 miles there and back somewhere for work." I work as a woodland conservationist, by the way. I check different forests to ensure all the trees are safe. "Then get a new car." I wish I could, but I simply cannot afford it right now. I was getting frustrated with her and also felt ashamed to be admitting my situation. She stared me down for a good minute, and I swear her eyes were growing larger as each second passed. She closed her eyes and took a big deep breath in before blowing all the air out while pinching her fingers together. "Calm, peace." Okay, I'm gonna shut my door now," I stated as she carried on repeating these mantras. After the weird conversation, I went upstairs to my bedroom, where I watched what she was doing. She stayed outside my door for a good 5 minutes and even sat down after a while to carry on meditating. I thought she must be taking the piss and just waited for her to leave, which eventually she did. The following day, as I was coming home from work, I saw her standing outside my house holding a sign that said, "Not your planet." And she was shouting all sorts of stuff like, "This person right here, look at the exhaust coming from the truck, planet killer," she screeched, pointing at me and stomping her feet. I quickly pulled onto my driveway and turned off the engine. "What are you doing?" I asked, looking around with a flushed face as people passed and stared. "Protesting. I've made a petition to get you to get rid of that car," she explained, smirking at me. She showed me the paper and I saw that there were 3 signatures. One was her and the other 2 had the same last name as her, so she had not really found anyone to sign. "Okay, well, not outside my house, you're not," I stated, staring at her. "You cannot choose where I stand. The sidewalk is everyone's," she tutted. The smirk remained. "True, I can't, but I also know that you cannot protest on public property without getting permission. Have you got permission from the council?" I asked with a condescending tone. She blanked for a moment, her brow furrowing, before she stormed over to her house and walked inside, slamming the door with an almighty slam. "What was that all about?" my neighbor asked. I ended up going over to her house and telling her everything that had happened the past 24 hours. She was shocked and we ended up searching her name online to see what we could find. Karen's Facebook page was more than dedicated to conservation and environmental justice. Most of her replies were her shaming people for things that were harming the planet. But not big things, it would be things like someone eating out or having a picnic and they were eating strawberries in a plastic box from the supermarket. What was funnier was that most of the posts she replied to were from her family, some of them replied to her comments with other nasty things, so I assume she has been cast from her family long ago. She was also in many hippie and global warming activist groups. I guess it was good to know a little bit more about her opinions on all of this. The next day she came knocking again, and this time she was with her son. "Mom, why do I have to be here?" I heard him ask as I was coming to the door. "Shh, let me do the talking." "Can I help you?" I asked with a sigh. "My son here has asthma. The fumes from your truck are abusing his lungs." "Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. I'll make sure he is nowhere nearby on the pavement before I start my truck." I replied. I wasn't sure if she was lying or not, but it was an understandable claim to make. Which, by the way, guys, I would not really agree with. Anyway, "No, you need to get rid of that truck, get an electric vehicle." She was suddenly all up in my face, and so I simply shut the door and locked it. I heard her carrying on screaming for a while, and then all was silent. I heard hushed voices and then a "go back inside" to her son. I suddenly got a call that I had to take, and so I was distracted for a few minutes, and when I looked outside, I nearly fainted at the sight of her hot-wiring my car. Just before I could get outside, she was speeding away in my truck, laughing manically out of the window. I called the cops immediately, and they soon began to chase her down. Following the tire tracks, I was in the cop car as well. After 30 minutes we found her. The car was parked in front of a paint store, and my neighbor was stood aside spray painting my car door. I was not overly upset. Again, it was an old piece of junk, but it was the principle. So then I ended up pressing charges, and we even ended up in court over it. "Okay, so you're here for vandalism and Grand Theft Auto, yes?" the judge asked my neighbor. "Yes, and I would also like to sue this wretched being for polluting our environment." She smirked as if she had suddenly won. Yeah, no, that's not gonna happen." The judge gave her quite the side eye and carried on explaining the proceedings. "What? No!" she started screeching. She did not stop her nonsense and ended up being escorted out by the cops, who she decided to punch. So then she ended up getting 5 years in prison for the theft and the assault of the officer, and they also threw in a few months of community service. In the end, I got $10,000 for everything that happened. And by the way, guys, I had to censor some private information there because OP was kind of doxing himself. Anyway, which was more than enough to replace the truck for something more eco-friendly, so in a way, she ended up getting what she wanted. Only she would never know because she and her family were forced to move across state and away from me. And here, Ripe Stars, let me know what you would have done if you had such a lunatic as a neighbor. Honestly, I'm so glad that I have nice neighbors. I would not be able to deal with such crazy people on a daily basis. Either way, if you enjoyed the video so far, please don't forget to give a like and a comment because that would help me tremendously. Anyway, the next one is an Am I the A-hole story. So, my wife, 35 female, and I, 35 male, just had our third child 1 month ago, 4 weeks. For the first week or two, my wife had to wake him up every couple of hours to feed him, but now we just let him sleep until he wakes up to eat. So here is where that becomes a problem. I'm a really heavy sleeper. There's nothing that can wake me up short of being attacked by a bear or shaken or something. It's been that way since way before my wife and I had kids. Babies crying or screaming don't wake me up. And by the way, guys, maybe that guy should try Disney, my cat, as a wake-up service. There's no way he won't wake up from that meow. Anyway, they did not even when we had our first 8 male, so usually I've woken up when my wife turns on the lights for changing and stuff like that. Apparently, I sleep through a lot when my wife is getting up a lot, so she is saying that she does an unfair amount of work at night because of it. I feel bad because I recognize that if I'm asleep, I'm not contributing to the night stuff. So now I asked my wife to wake me up when the baby wakes up, and she told me that made it so much worse and that it was like weaponized incompetence. She does not want to wake me up for some reason. I'm not weaponizing my heavy sleep against her, I just want her to wake me up so I can help. But like I said, she said it makes it worse and now she is mad. So am I the a-hole for asking to wake me up so I can help with the night stuff for our newborn? And yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know in the comments what you think about this. Comment number 1 on Reddit said, "You are the a-hole. Your solution is just more work for her, that's why she's mad. It's on you to get yourself sorted. Plenty of people sleep like the dead, I'm one, but when your baby is screaming, you get up. Your wife has always been there, so you've not had to do that. Make yourself, there's plenty of help and appliances out there that are not your wife. Comment number 2, you are the a-hole. By the time your wife wakes up, she's gonna be wide awake and pushed off even more. Find a way to make it up to her somehow. Don't expect her to wake you up. Maybe on the weekend sleep in the nursery and take care of the baby. Just something. And yeah guys, I guess that would be a pretty good solution to the whole situation. I guess if OP sleeps right next to the baby or something, there's no way he won't wake up. Either way, let's move on to the next story, which is titled, I Showed Him Who is the Boss. The recent landlord story reminded me that I have one of my own to share. It's about 7 years ago, I'm living in a trailer, like legit trailer, not a double wide, in a trailer park because it was my own place and it got me the hell away from my parents and did not cost me an arm and a leg for rent. Cramped? You bet. But living on my own was a freedom that I cannot understate. That price came with its own price though. The landlord was kind of lazy. Hell, I did not even get a tank of propane when I signed the lease, I had to pay for it myself. But rolled into rent was all utilities besides electricity, which oddly enough the landlord was responsible for adding that to our rent every month. This led to some interesting issues that eventually got resolved, but that's not within the scope of this sub. Other than that, the landlord paid everything. My trailer already had issues, mostly parts of it breaking from just old age. But one of the bigger things was the outdoor lighting. You see, there was this very small step that went up to the concrete platform my trailer sat on. And it was small enough that I have no idea why it was put there, big enough that you will easily trip over it. The landlord had put down those cheap solar lights to keep it lit, but those had since died. I brought it to the landlord's attention, promises that it would get fixed, and this went on for weeks. Finally, after a particularly bad day at work, I decided I had enough once I tripped over it for the upteenth time. I went to the homeless depot and picked up some better solar lights and stuck them where the old ones were. Finally, bliss and not having visitors and myself trip up on their way to my front door. Or so I thought. Couple days later, I come home from work, my solar lights are crudely ripped out of the ground and tossed aside, and there is a notice taped to my door that essentially said, residents are not allowed to make their own repairs or modifications to anything on their property. If you need anything else, please contact Lazy Landlord. For those curious, for the entire year and a half I lived there, no, they never replaced the lights. I did, however, stick a directional light on the one outdoor light I was allowed to replace and aimed it right at the offending step. This becomes relevant later. I just sighed angrily and went about the rest of my day. Now, remember when I said things were breaking on my trailer from old age? Well, a few months later, I come home from work to hear running water near my trailer. I round the corner and noticed that the big water hose feeding my trailer water had basically disintegrated from being old and worn and was spewing water everywhere. I also remembered that number 1, the landlord pays the water bill, and number 2, they were lazy and never did anything, and number 3, when I did try to correct for their laziness, they went ham on me for daring to make my life somewhat better. So I turned around, went back to my car, called my mom and asked if I could stay the night at her house, to which she agreed. Sure, I knew exactly where the shutoff valve was for the water line going to my trailer. Could I have engaged it? Sure, but seeing as the last time I did something good I was screamed at for making my own repairs. Nope, landlord was gonna pay for all that water and her laziness too. Seriously, that hose should have been swapped long ago and wasn't. The landlord did try to hassle me over it. The irony is she lived directly adjacent to my trailer, so her not noticing the gushing water is next level laziness. But I pointed out that she specifically told me that I would get a paddle in if I tried to do anything on my own again and figured I would leave water issues to the professionals. And of course also maintenance of the water system was never spelled out in my responsibilities to the property. She eventually got relieved of her job a couple months after that whole thing went down. Her replacement was much better about things. And the next one is a revenge story. It is titled, I Got My Revenge. A bit of background info, I'm in my early 40s and opened my shop about 10 years ago. I used to be one of the full-time mechanics, but now entered more of an entrepreneur role, owning more properties and businesses. I still visit the shop every Friday or randomly to help. I provide free coffee and snacks for everyone, going to Sam's Club for those bulk chip variety boxes. I buy them at the beginning of the month and leave them in the shop. 1 month by the 3rd week I went to grab one but could not find any chips anywhere. The shop is not big, like 4 to 5 workers, and I get like 8 boxes a month and each box has around 50 bags in them. I thought it was outrageous to go through 400 bags in 3 weeks. The shop is only open 5 days a week with normal business hours. So I called everyone together for a basic meeting saying to be mindful of how many bags they are taking. Everyone said they'd only been taking 2 to 3, which the math I guess doesn't seem right, but who's bothering to count chips? Me, it seems. I let everyone go and then leave to buy more again. Then I encountered the same issue next month. Showing off the math and everyone says the same thing they said last month. I said that I believe someone or people are not being honest with me and that I don't like that. One day it is chips and soon it could be more. I leave and this time did not bring back any chips. The next Friday, at the end of the day, I come back with chips again, which seems made everyone excited since there weren't any for a week, but I announced there would be some changes. I had also brought a couple of vending machines with me. No more free chips, no more free water bottles. If you want water, you can get it from the water fountain in the lobby or a tap. No more cable, cheaper free coffee, no more Starbucks pots, increased temperature ranges 68 to 76, used to be 72 all year round. Removing my personal tools from the shop, and I believe every mechanic should have their own tools and was lenient with them, basically always using my tools and even having to occasionally replace them, even if I was not the one who lost it. Everyone was pretty stunned and one of the mechanics even had to drag his toolbox from home to be able to work properly again in the shop. The chips and canned drinks are not that expensive, it's like 50 cents a piece. A box of chips is like 20 bucks, so yeah, this is like all over basically a few hundreds of dollars every year. I believe everyone here is getting paid fairly based where we are in the Midwest. Most of these individuals I've known for years and the turnover is pretty low. Most of it is apprentices graduating or senior mechanics wanting more money, but there really isn't any unless you want to go to management in another shop. Don't take advantage of a nice thing or it may go away. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. I had just moved into a new apartment complex. According to the lease, reserved parking was available and all such spots were clearly marked reserved. Fine, I work nights, I got home at 5:30 AM, pull into a spot definitely, without any reserved markings. I wake up at 2 PM, my dad wants to meet me for lunch. Cool. Except my car is gone. I go to the leasing office and yep, it was towed. It turns out it was a numbered spot, but the reserved sign was missing. The towing company argued that all numbered spots are reserved, the tow is legal. I showed them the lease agreement where it specifically said that all such spots would be marked reserved. It was even in quotes. Well, I need my car. So yeah, lunch was shot, my dad is the one who drove me to the impound. I pay, but immediately go home and charge back. I submit photos of the spot, the lease agreement, everything, bank sides with me. I get my money back, not done with the towing company, I also called the city, found the department that handles parking enforcement. I submitted the same photos to them along with my explanation. They also agree with me and levy a fine against the tow company. I get a small portion of that, would have also got my money back here if I hadn't already. I'm not done yet though, remember I mentioned I work nights? Well, I work as a mobile security guard in addition to escorting jewelry moves, responding to alarms and escorting ATM technicians to high-risk sites, since we are supposed to check various businesses that pay for nightly checks. Most want door or vagrant checks, but some want parking enforcement checks. Well, not gonna put my work at risk, so instead of something petty, I, as the supervisor, realized something. I got a monthly chance to report to each site my security suggestions. That month, every site where we do parking checks that had this company as their towers, I put in the suggestion of another company, telling them response times were better and they dealt more fairly. About half of them took my suggestion in the next 3 months. Why not? Towing companies don't charge to patrol lots, they make money off the tows, so it's cost-free. All told, I cost the towing company 4 apartment complexes, 3 paid lots and 2 business complexes worth of lots. But also, there was another person I needed my revenge against now too, the resident who had me towed. See, my towing receipt had resident request listed. I followed up on those details. It seems they work nights too, came home at 9:30 when the lot was virtually empty. I was in their spot, and now if it was a repeated problem or if there was no other spots, fine, but calling for a tow when literally the spot right next to it was open was a dick move when it was the first time. So I watched the car for a month or so, learned when it was gone and when it was there. It seems it stayed in the spot 2 days straight, Wednesday and Thursday, guessing days off. Well, it was tag renewal time for me. The move messed up the process and the year sticker got mailed to the wrong address. I went into the DMV and explained, got a new sticker, etc. They accidentally gave me a month sticker as well. I put the year sticker on my car and waited until Wednesday. Wednesday, I put the month sticker over theirs, and now their plate said they expired in April instead of October. Then I pointed out to the towing company's patrol guy the plate was expired. They did as the contract says, put a 24-hour warning sticker on it. Well, now it was a crapshoot. Would they run errands before the 24 hours was up? Turns out no. The next day, the tow guy towed the vehicle while I sat nearby and watched, laughing to myself. No idea how that one resolved itself, what with the sticker I put on it not being valid and the car was not expired. But the tow company had no way to know that, not even sure what the law says about that one. I just know the hassle and inconvenience they had caused me had been repaid in full and the tow company had been repaid plus some. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.